I knew that brands needed to start kind of treating themselves as influencers. That was like my whole pitch when I would pitch these brands. I would say like, you need to have storytelling, you need to treat yourself as an influencer, and that's how you're going to create community and how you're going to have people, really resonate with what you're building or what you're selling. And so I would create content I would create a content calendar for the founders, because I was working with a lot of small businesses, to treat themselves more as like a creator account, and it did really well.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the PlayBridge podcast. Today, we are joined by Natalie Barbu. She is a content creator turned entrepreneur. She began her social media career in 2011 on YouTube as a beauty creator. Since then, she has grown her following to over 380,000 across platforms. She is also the host of the Real podcast, a show where she speaks to entrepreneurs, business leaders, and creators to talk about the real, not the highlight reel. Natalie is also the CEO and founder of Rella, a venture-backed software startup building the back office for creators. Natalie, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. So to kick it off, you've had just like an incredible career journey. What I didn't even mention in your bio is that you also had spent some time in consulting. You owned a clothing store. You've really done it all. So would love if you could just start by sharing your career journey, like where you started straight out of college and then the pivots and different moves you've made since.
Yeah, so my career definitely has taken a lot of twists and turns, I would say, but I actually started on YouTube in 2011. So 13 years ago. It's been a really long time doing it. I had a YouTube channel before I had an Instagram. So very long time. And I started as a beauty fashion guru is at the time what it was called, and did it throughout high school, went to college, thought I was going to do something more technical. So got my degree in industrial engineering and then went the consulting route. So that's where I worked at Accenture for a little bit. And I also started an online store like you saw. And then I shut down that store because margins are really bad when it comes to physical product, especially just like online clothing, like selling clothing online. And so shut that down and then started an agency where I helped creators one-on-one. I was coaching creators and helping them with their social strategy. I managed a few creators at the time just to help them get brand deals. And then I also had a few brands as my clients where I was helping run their Instagrams and their social media sites, and also with their social media, help them out with social media strategy. And that's where I came up with the idea for Rella, was when I had worked as a full-time creator. I was also helping other creators. I was working on the brand side of things, and I just hated every single product that I was using to manage my business and to send, share, plan content, to manage my creators, manage my own campaigns as a creator. And I knew that there needed to be something better out there. And so that's how Rella came to be. It was just like my own annoyance. And so I ended up shutting down the agency once I started Rella because I couldn't do both full time. Like there was just no way. And so I knew Rella had this huge opportunity. And so I went all in on starting Rella, met my co-founders, started the business, and we raised our pre-seed round of funding. And now here we are.
As a creator, definitely understand the pain points that you and the Rella team are solving for. Before we dive too much into what you're building there, would love to hear more about like what inspired you to first get on YouTube, to first start creating content.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm a very impulsive person, and like anything that I've done, like that's the common thread is I'll just like I want to start something and then I just kind of go off and do it, which is great. But when I was starting YouTube, I just watched a few YouTube videos for like a day. Like I just like stumbled across these beauty gurus that were around my age, and they were filming in their rooms, their makeup tutorials and the outfits that they're wearing for school. And they're filming these CVS hauls and little videos like that. And I just was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like I could do that. Like that looks fun. And so after that day, I just like pulled out my laptop, filmed my first video on Photo Booth and uploaded it. And it was a makeup tutorial. And it's funny because I was 15 at the time. And like, I don't even think I really wore makeup, but I would like got my mom's makeup and started like filming a tutorial of myself, putting it on from what I've seen the other girls doing. And I just fell in love with the aspects of like community building, even though that's not what I called it back then. I was so excited when I got a new subscriber, when I got a new comment, when I got views on my channel. Like I remember I got 100 subscribers and I did an entire giveaway and I was like, this is the best day of my life. I can't believe this. Like, that's why I kept going, is because I was building community, even though I didn't even know that that's technically what I was doing.
Did you have like pretty immediate success, or has it been like a long grind to kind of build a true community and following? And then also, what was your path to first being able to monetize your content?
Definitely a long grind. I always tell people I had no virality. Like there was no video that just like popped off and got me 100,000 subscribers. Like that was never a thing for any of my social media platforms. Like I've always been slow and steady. And I think it's because I don't necessarily have a very specific niche. My niche is me, where like I just talk about my life and share the behind the scenes. And so it's definitely slower to grow, but I think that's also what's kept me having like a really long career in social media, is because my audience has grown up and evolved with me, which I'm really grateful for. So definitely slow and steady, but I've always been that way. And I actually think there's a lot of pros to it, like I was mentioning. And then what was your other question?
Oh, what was your path to monetizing? And yeah, when and how did you first monetize your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I didn't start monetizing my YouTube channel until 2 years in. So it was a really long time. I mean, I was making money from AdSense, but it was like $100 a month maybe. It was not a lot of money. And even my first time monetizing with brand deals, I think it took a lot of time, or a long time, for brands to even recognize that they could pay creators. So for me, when I first started working with brands, it was like in exchange for free product. Like it was like, okay, like I'll take a Instagram photo if you give me free clothes. And so that was like my first experience working with brands. And then in college, I started seeing girls that I was watching on YouTube start moving out to LA, and they weren't going to college and they were being full-time creators. And that was like not heard of back then. And I was like, what? Like how are these girls my age and they're already like living on their own in LA, and there must be good money in this. And so that like flipped a switch in my brain where I was like, I'm going to treat this as a business. And it was like literally a light switch where I was like, I'm going to have a schedule. I'm going to post about it on my social media. Cause at the time I was hiding it from everyone. Like I did not want people to know I was on YouTube. Like I was really secretive about it. Did not post on my Instagram, like didn't tell anyone besides like my close friends. Like I was like kind of embarrassed about it. So I was like, I'm going to start promoting it. I'm going to start posting once a week. I'm going to start like reaching out to brands. Like I like took it seriously because I saw this potential of like, I could have like not gone to college and just done this, that's so cool. So in college is when I started like seeing brands pay and started monetizing.
What's your advice for like reaching out to brands and like negotiating deals and actually, monetizing your content?
Yeah, I always think that it's like a numbers game. So you have to reach out. And I always think email is the best way to go. Like, don't just DM them on Instagram. You could DM them and ask them, like, hey, what's the best email? But I always think finding like a specific person that works at the company is best. So if you can find someone on LinkedIn and then go to Rocket Reach and find their email, like be creative with it. Cause I think 99% of creators just DM them and that's it. And so they're not going to, their email might not get seen. So try to get to the direct source. State why you're a good person to work with. So have you talked about them before? Does your content align with them? Like, let's say you want to work with a clothing brand. How have your previous fashion posts performed, and put those into your email, but keep it short and sweet. It should be, hi, this is my name. I do X, Y, and Z. Here's some of my content that resonates with the brand. The analytics would love to come up with a partnership and work together. And that way you're on their radar. And another underutilized tip, I think, is to go reach out to PR agencies, because a lot of times it's not the brand directly that's running their influencer marketing campaigns. It's PR agencies. And if you get in with a PR agency, you can then get in with all of their clients because they represent a bunch of brands and they'll keep you on their list. I also am big on, if you can meet in person with them, I will reach out to PR agencies and I'll say like, hey, like I'm in LA or I'm in New York. I'd love to get lunch with someone at the team, because once they know you personally, they're going to think about you more, because you're now like they have an actual interaction with you. And so I always try doing that, especially when you're smaller. I think that it's like such a good way to do it. But yeah, those would be my like biggest tips. And then of course, like be organic with the content you are promoting. So like if you want to work with a brand and you genuinely love them and you use them, like start tagging them and start posting about them to get their attention.
So while we're on the topic of content creation, I imagine there might be some founders listening that want to start creating content so that they can, have a channel for the brands or companies that they are building. Do you have any advice for like getting started today and how you really can start to build community online?
Yeah, I think it's really important for brands now to have a face of the brand. So a lot of times that is the founder. Sometimes you can hire someone to do that, but having one specific person that manages your social media account as a creator account, but it's a brand account. And I think that's how you really build community and you do storytelling really well. If I go on a brand's account and I just see a bunch of random people and it's every video is kind of like an advertisement, I'm not really going to follow it. I'm not going to interact with the content. And you're really better off just putting money behind ads and, converting people that way. If you're going to use TikTok and Instagram, I think it needs to be from a storytelling perspective and you have to be able to resonate with the people you're trying to reach. So for us, I am the face of Rella. So it's, I'm the founder. So I get to share my founder story. I get to share the behind the scenes and the journey and why we built this and why I am the best person to build a product like this and how I understand the pain points. And it's not just, here's our product, buy it. It's like people feel connected to me as a person and then they feel connected to the brand. So I would actually hire someone or have the founder become a creator. And I know it's out of the comfort zone for a lot of founders, but if you at least have someone come up with like the content you're going to create and then just have the founder film it or share something, I think that's a way to like break it down and make it easier. That's actually what I was doing at my agency. So when I had my agency, even in 2018, it was 2018, 2019, or it was 2019 actually. And I knew that brands needed to start kind of treating themselves as influencers. That was like my whole pitch when I would pitch these brands. I would say like, you need to have storytelling. You need to treat yourself as an influencer. And that's how you're going to create community and how you're going to have people, really resonate with what you're building or what you're selling. And so I would create content I would create a content calendar for the founders because I was working with a lot of small businesses to treat themselves more as like a creator account. And it did really well.
Completely agree. Are there any brands or company pages that come to mind that you think are great examples for people to look up?
Yeah, I think Set Active does a great job in the clothing space. I know Lindsay's the founder, but they actually hired someone who is a TikToker and he does their social media. And
He
it's
does a
great
great
because,
job.
yeah, and a lot of times it's not about the clothing at all. He's just filming in the office and he's
Yeah.
interviewing employees. Half the time they're wearing set or it's getting people engaged and then they follow that account and they don't even realize they're following a brand account. And so I think that's one way to do it. Duolingo, I think, was the first one to step out of this like bubble of just like salesy ads, TikToks, and it's because they hired. I think her name is. It starts with a Z. Zara. I'm not sure what her name is, but
Yeah, I know exactly who you are talking about, but also cannot remember her name.
yes. So they hired her to create like just like fun videos. And I'm sure at first she probably had pushback of, well, what? Like, we're going to film like the owl in the office. Like, this is so stupid. And then it did so well. And now people love it. And even though obviously it's not like founder facing, the owl is its own character and creator in itself. And the content is not about why Duolingo is a good language app. It's just like fun behind the scenes content. And so I think that's another, like, obviously a brand account that does a good job. And Waterboy does a good job. They just hired Jenna Palick, who's a creator. Like, I think it's really smart to hire a creator internally or to become a creator yourself.
How do you think those deals are happening? Do you think it's like, do you have any insight into what it looks like to hire a creator?
I don't. I'm sure it's a mix of equity, salary, monthly retainer. Like, I'm sure it's one of three, or if not, at least two of them, like maybe a little bit of equity and then some monthly retainer, depending on who they create. If they already create, because Set Active and Waterboy have big creators that are now creating content for them. Like they already had a following. So I feel like at that point you have to give a little bit more than just money, because a lot of times their brand deals are going to be worth more. Like if they're a big creator already, Jenna can probably she's making hundreds of that. I would guess that she's making 500K minimum a year on brand deals. So Waterboy's not going to pay her that much as a social media creator salary. But if they give her, 2%, 1% equity, and it's going to become, $100 million company, $1 billion company, then that's, worth it for her.
So you were a content creator, then you were working in consulting. So one, what was your experience like working in corporate America, and what ultimately led you to dive all into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I was working at Accenture for a little bit, and I was working at Accenture while I was also doing content creation. But when I first got the job at Accenture, I definitely was not making enough money to do content creation full time. Transparently, I was making like 30K when I graduated college on content creation. So it wasn't enough. I knew that there was potential there, but it definitely wasn't enough for me to like not go off and like take this job that I was offered. So I started working at Accenture, and then 9 months into the job, I was making already like double my salary on content creation. So my social media grew a lot from 2018 to 2019. And so I quit my job once I was making double. Like I wanted that cushion because I just didn't, it was still earlier days where I was like, what if this does go away? What if I've just had a few good months and like, things shift. So I didn't want to quit like once I broke even, because I just like wasn't sure. And I also got my degree in industrial engineering. I had just graduated. I was like, I kind of want to like put this degree to use a little bit. And so I quit once I had the benchmark that I wanted. And then I went and pursued social media full time, but I immediately started my podcast when I quit, and I started my agency. So I knew when I quit my job, I didn't just want to do content creation. I also wanted to do other things. And quitting my job it opened up my time so that I could do that.
Were there any issues with your job around like you creating content, or maybe was that something you had to like report to them?
Yeah, it's funny because I see so many people having issues with it today. Like so many people are either quitting their job and because they're creating content. I never created content about Accenture. So I created content saying like what my day was like as a consultant, or, my morning routine and then my night routine after work, living as a consultant, but I never filmed on the job. And I never shared where I worked. Like if people found me on LinkedIn, they could see it was Accenture, but Accenture was never said on my YouTube channel because I didn't want my name to be tied with Accenture. So that kept it a little bit distant. But in my job interview, like I talked about me being a creator the entire time, and I fully believe that that's why I got the job, because it was different. I had experience working with brands / clients. I was already generating revenue from this, and I felt like I was very organized. And that was the number one topic. And my job interviews, we had 3 rounds of interviews, and all 3 rounds, that was like what they wanted to talk about. And so I think that it actually was an advantage for me. And then when I got to the job, everyone, like when you at a consulting company, you work for a project. So it's like another company that hires the consultancy. So the company that I was like working on the project for, they knew also that I did content, and like they were totally fine with it. I think they expected me to quit eventually because they did see like that I was growing, and I would always like, I used up all my PTO. I remember I had like 18 days PTO, and I went to Coachella one year. I like took it off for Coachella and like a California trip. And then I came back after using like a whole week of PTO, and I like put in my notice. Like it was like, it was an immediate like, okay, I'm gone. And I think they kind of like saw it coming, but I always made sure that like when I was working. Like I wasn't, and this was before work from home. So I was like in the office. So I was in the office every day working, and like I did a really good job as a consultant, so that like after, they never had anything to say about like me being a creator.
I feel like these days companies are a little bit scared of content creators, to be honest. But in my mind, I think it's like so impressive that you could build something like that. So I think it's so cool that Accenture like recognized that and you were kind of sharing that story in your interviews?
Yeah, it's actually, I think maybe because now with like work from home culture, people are creating content instead of working for, their company. And like, don't get me wrong, if I was working from home, which I remember I had every Friday off, and I would always look forward to Friday, or not off, but working from home. And I would always look forward to it because I was like, oh, finally I can like work on my other stuff. Like I was, so I don't blame people for doing that, but it's definitely, I can see why some companies might be weary about it, or like if you're filming on the job and you say something and then it reflects poorly on the company. Like recently, someone that was working at Chick-fil-A, she just got laid off. I don't know if you saw that, and she would review her lunch meal every single day. So she was
Yes,
filming
I've
her on
seen
her
those.
lunch break. Yeah, and she got laid off because she couldn't film. They told her she couldn't film content anymore. So I don't know if she was like fired or if they told her she had to stop filming and then she said, I quit. Like, I'm not sure the situation, but they should have
Sad.
used that opportunity to like hire her as a creator because she was doing so well. Like, I wish
So
brands would
true.
see it that way.
No, yeah, I remember specifically her kale salad where she would put the chicken nuggets on it with the honey mustard dressing, and it looks amazing, and I
Hmm.
want to go try it. So that would be the
Exactly.
perfect, they should have hired her to literally just run their content creation.
Yeah, like instead of giving her this ultimatum, because I understand big companies have legal teams and she could have said something that misrepresented the brand. I get that. But then they should have seen this momentum of her doing well and done a collab with her, like maybe at her local Chick-fil-A, like her kale honey mustard collab, something, like
Yeah,
I think they could have used that or been like, hey, we want to hire you to actually create content for us instead because it's doing so well. Because now it's like bad press because they
yeah.
let her go.
I'm sure she did a TikTok sharing that story. I have not seen that one, but I'm gonna go look at it and I'm sure it's very viral.
Yeah, she did. And like everyone in the comments is like, what a missed opportunity from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. So sad. Okay, so you left consulting and you started the agency and the podcast. What was the reasoning there? Just to diversify your income, or kind of how were you thinking about building those different businesses?
Yeah, I've always viewed social media as a stepping stone where I want to use, my platform to do something else. And so I've always said, like, I always want to be a creator. Like, even if my videos and channels like flopping, like, I love being a creator. And so I always knew that it was going to like open doors and be a creative outlet and be a platform for me. So I wanted to start the podcast just because I, again, like, was started listening to podcasts and was like, wait, this is fun. Like, I want to do this. And so that's why I started the podcast. But then with the agency, I had this opportunity where I was like, I think I'm good at this. And like, I think I could help brands and creators. And I want to use my platform as this opportunity to like go after this and start something bigger than just my content creation platform. So that's kind of why I did that.
Okay, so diving more into Rella, help us understand like what were the big key issues that you were seeing and that you wanted to solve, and how did you kind of go about figuring out how do I even start something like a tech startup?
So for me, when I was starting Rella and had the pain points, I was so frustrated of all of the different tools I was using, of all of the different apps I was using. I felt like nothing was made specifically for social media content. Like it was all just like generic project management tools or very manual, like spreadsheets, Google Drive, stuff like that. And so I wanted something that was very specific to this industry because, like I said, it's such a growing industry. And now I view being a creator or having a creator on your team or having a content creation team in general as like having a website 10 years ago. Like every business needs to have it. And so I saw it moving in that direction and I was like, okay, there's this space in the market where these tools are so outdated and they're not built for this. So like I want to create something that helps creators like myself or any brands or social media managers that are, trying to do this on their own. And so I started reaching out to developers because I was like, I don't know how to build this. Like, I'm not technical enough to build an app. So started reaching out to developers thinking this was just going to be a project. I was like, this is going to be like a 3-month thing and I can sell it for $5 a month. Like I was like delusional. Like I had no idea what I was getting into because I've never been in the startup world before. I came from a corporate background. I was an industrial engineering major. Like I was not in the startup or business space at all. So I found these developers and I would talk to a bunch of them and like I didn't really like any of them. And then I met my co-founders through a mutual friend. They had already had a software consultancy where they were developing apps for other startups and like contracted out for other startups. So they were a little bit more in the know with like apps and startups. And so when we met, I just started paying them to kind of like help consult me and like help with the wireframes and like the very early stages of the app. And then they really brought it to my attention. Like, this could be huge. Like, this could be like a big business. And like, they really liked working with me. I loved working with them. So we're like, why don't we do this together? Like, and that's where I realized the potential opportunity in this and the fact that this wasn't just a little project. This was a company. And so I was really thrown into the startup world without wanting to be in it. Not that I was like against it. I just didn't know anything about it. It wasn't my intention. Like, I think today, I mean, you talk to so many founders, like they like want to be startup founders. Like that is like, they're coming up with an idea and they're planning on raising money. And that's like their goal is to be a tech founder. That was not my goal. My goal was to solve this problem that I had. And the way to do it was through technology and through software. So I wanted to build this piece of software. And then that kind of turned into, okay, well, how are we going to build it? We need money. Okay. So I guess we need to raise money. Like, what does that look like? And so started researching that, started talking to other founders and seeing like, what is the process of raising money? Like, what does that look like? And that's where we ended up raising our pre-seed round of funding. And when I say that, it sounds like so casual. Like, it took months. Like, it was not easy. Like, especially coming from someone that like doesn't have a background in it. Like, I had zero connections in the space. So like, it took like 8 months or something to raise a pre-seed round, which I feel like I would always get so discouraged because I would hear people say like, oh, I raised my pre-seed round in 3 weeks, or I raised it in 2 months. And I'm like, oh my God, am I a failure? Because I'm like not raising it in this amount of time. But it was just like a lot of practice and a lot of learning. And I always say I got my MBA program like 10 times over building this.
I think the founders that are raising in like 3 months, what you don't realize is that they've maybe had years building their relationships in the startup VC ecosystem. And so I feel like that is what allows them to do that. And I know we've talked about this in the past. I grew up in North Carolina. I know you went to NC State. And one of the main reasons I do this show and like create a bunch of content around startups and VC is that like that was a foreign land to me before I like started working in fintech, after I discovered it working with Deloitte and consulting and ended up taking the leap. But I think there's like so many people that don't have access to this space at all. So it's exciting to be able to share more stories like yours. So yeah, back to the fundraise. At what point were you like, we need to go out and raise? Like, what was kind of the reasoning for going out to do your pre-seed? And just what are your biggest learnings and takeaways from raising your first round of venture capital?
Biggest learning is it really is all about your network. And that's not to say that if you don't have a network, you can't raise, because again, I did not have a network. I think anyone nowadays can build a network. It's all about reaching out to people, asking to get on a phone call, asking, to just like, if you could have a few minutes to like talk about what you're building. And a lot of people I've noticed at least are very willing to help, because I think majority of people in the space also didn't necessarily come from a bunch of connections. Like, of course, you have the person that like their dad is a VC and whatever, but like for the most part, the founders I've talked to, like either, didn't really have the most connections. And so they're willing to help because they had people help them too. So I found people in the space to be very helpful and friendly with like getting on the phone call and chatting. And so that was like the biggest help for me. And the biggest thing with raising is that there's so much like language I didn't know, or there were so many like terms I didn't understand. Like, I didn't know what a safe was. I didn't know what YC was. I didn't know what an accelerator meant, or what that, like, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to calculate your valuation. Like, I did not know anything. And so there was a lot of learnings that I had to do. And so the best resources was YouTube. Like, I like slide beamed for startup content and like just like learning how to like start your business, like Startup 101. I listened to podcasts. I read books about VC and investing because I just wanted to understand and be in a room and not look like an idiot if I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what they're talking about, or have an investor ask like nothing's more embarrassing than when an investor is like, okay, so like, what vehicle are you raising this with, or like, or on, or like, what's the post money cap? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And that's like, okay, like go back to the drawing board. So definitely try to like talk to people and, find resources that are going to help you understand what exactly it means to raise money.
Any favorite either YouTubers or podcasts or books that you would say, like, if you're a first-time founder, like, absolutely, you must go listen to?
I always recommend the Startup podcast. It's season 1. It's like, I don't even know how old it is, but it's so helpful. It's the founders of Gimlet Media, and it's like a vlog style podcast where he takes you through like how he started Gimlet, and he takes you to investor meetings. He takes you through meetings with, or conversations with him and his wife talking about it. Like, it's like really insightful, and you really get to know the behind the scenes of being a founder. I actually would love to like re-listen to it now that I'm, a founder. And like hear if I catch any other insights. So that the Startup podcast season 1 was great. How I built this is obviously really encouraging and like very helpful. For more technical startups or like software companies, I love the In-Depth podcast by First Round Capital. It's like really specific with like certain problems that you might be facing in your company, like how to find product market fit or how to grow an engineering team, and very specific things, but it's from their portfolio, like founders in their portfolio, and it's so helpful, I think. And then I've read like a ton of different books from founders. So Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. It's by the Ways founder. That one I would say is my favorite book for startup founders. So I'd recommend anyone to listen or to read that one.
Cool. I have not listened to or read a few of those, so excited to add them to my list as well. Amazing. So you raised the pre-seed round of capital, and then how did you get Rella really off the ground, and how did you reach those first customers?
Yeah, so for us, we built in public, and I always think that that's like one of the best things you can do, especially as a startup, because one, people are more patient with you. They also feel it humanizes the brand more, and people feel like they're a part of the journey when you're showing them the behind the scenes. So for us, we talked about Rella before we even launched Rella, and we got like a huge wait list, and we had beta testers, and we had a bunch of people excited for it. So by the time we launched, we had hundreds of people sharing it. We had thousands of pre-orders. We were on the App Store charts. Like, it was great because we were building in public and building that community. And now, like, people see all the work that I put in, and people meet the team, and I tell people about like, hey, this is what we're working on, or these are the features we're working on. And like, they actually feel like they're a part of the company. So I think building in public is like the best thing any startup or even small business can do.
Yeah. I think that goes back to our earlier conversation on the power of a creator-led or a founder-led brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. And so walk us through, help us understand, like, what are the core features of Rella today and who can be using the product?
Yeah, so it's anyone that deals with social media content, so content creators, UGC creators, talent managers, or social media managers. So if you work in social media, you definitely can be using Rella. You can track all of your campaigns and all of your clients on Rella. So starting from when you get a deal, whether it's a brand deal or a client, track the campaigns on there. And then you can also share, upload, and send all of your content across all platforms on Rella, or like share and upload with your clients as well, or with brands for brand deals. So it's a way to really like organize your entire workflow from the beginning of the campaign to executing it and uploading it online.
Amazing. And back to kind of the building in public, I think I saw that you have Corporate Natalie as an advisor. Is that right?
Yes.
Amazing. How did you think about like bringing on advisors? Do you have other creators that are advisors on board?
Yeah, we're going to sign a few more creators to be advisors. And we thought about this because we wanted people that really believed in the brand. Like some influencer campaigns, the person can hear of you for the first time and like promote you, and it might get some conversion. But we wanted people that use the product. We wanted people that were excited and saw the pain points. And so when I was introduced to Corporate Natalie, from a friend, and she like immediately was like, oh my God, this is something that like I've been wanting for such a long time. We onboarded her and her manager on the platform. She loved it. And so then we wanted her to be an advisor just because we saw her enthusiasm and her like excitement about the product. And so her and her manager use it. They give us great feedback. They've been like really helpful. So that's been great for us to see firsthand how a creator like that uses it. But yeah, I want to like talk to every single creator that we're going to sign on and like have a relationship with them and like see how they like to use it, because that's what gets us. Like, we don't want someone that just like wants equity and that's it. Like, we want you to feel like you are like a part of the company.
Yeah. How do you suss that out? Just kind of building a relationship up front.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of phone calls, a lot of calls with the team, and just seeing like, I feel like you can kind of see someone's like enthusiasm or excitement with it. So yeah, it's usually just by like multiple phone calls with the person.
Yeah. And for structuring like advisor influencer deals like this, is it typically like full equity, or do you ever like work out like a cash equity split?
So for us right now, it's just been equity with advisory shares. So that's what our deals are. And we're very transparent with them with like what the value, like what our round dynamics look like, so that they know what that could look like in terms of cash if, we had an exit.
And then as we start to wrap things up, can you share a female founder, investor, or leader who inspires you and a bit about why?
Ooh, I love Grace Beverly. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's a creator and a founder. She's incredible. She doesn't have a software company, but she's created multiple companies, actually. One is called Tala, and it's a workout wear line. So like leggings, sports bras, things to work out in. And then she's also started a protein company, I believe, like with like protein powder. And she also has a planner that she sells. But she raised, I think, 5 million with her seed round for her workout company. And she is just someone I look up to because, one, we're similar in age. She's also another female founder, and she shows that like you can still be girly and like to post on social media and like still also be a really successful, amazing founder. And I think for so long, that's been my struggle, where I'm like, okay, are people going to take me seriously if I'm posting on social media? Are people going to, I know my job is in social media. Like, even the company I've started has to do with it, but like, are investors going to take me seriously? Are other companies going to take me seriously? What are people going to think? And she just shows that you can be like incredibly successful and really smart and intelligent, and just, I like love everything she's done, and like still post content that you want to post, and like be feminine and girly and all of these other things that I love.
Amazing. And then lastly, where can people find you and where can people find Rella?
Yeah, you can find me at Natalie Barbu wherever. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. My podcast is The Real Real, REALREEL. And then you can find Rella at Rella Social or getrella.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show, and just so excited to share your story.
Thanks so much. This was amazing.